Ladies, a very good morning to you both, and thank you for coming in. Let's start with that very question of just why it is that we're seeing an increase in the number of kids who are dumped and those who are found dead. Khobale, let's start with you.
I think from my side, it's a myriad of issues. One, poverty. Two, the fact that sexual and reproductive justice in South Africa is not fully recognized. So even if there is an option to having an abortion and giving your child up for adoptions, those services are not accessible for a lot of black women and poor women in South Africa.
And that brings up the conversation. I mean, growing up in a township, you'd hear this a lot where young women who fall pregnant, for example, you think of teenagers who are still in school, a lot of them fall pregnant, they don't even go for the mandatory checkups that a pregnant woman should go for because there's still that ill treatment that they get from the clinics where there's stigma around the very fact that you are maybe 16 and pregnant regardless of the circumstances. So how do we change those attitudes at clinic and hospital level?
Well, there's a lot that needs to change, because before we can say judge the women who cannot access the services, we should find out why. And there's a lot of reasons. The health system itself should be youth friendly, and young girls cannot access abortion services. And once they could not access abortion services, and then they also do not have information on what to do if they have decided that, or they could not do an abortion and find that they don't have information on how to follow adoption procedures and follow all those kind of things, and that's how we find that we get babies that get abandoned.
And I understand you worked in the health sector, you were a nurse.
Yeah.
Did you find that among staff, that was a conversation that was being had to say, guys, we could really do better, especially in dealing with young women who find themselves pregnant and are not ready for a child, to say to them, listen, abortion is an option, adoption is also a choice that you can make, and here's how you'd go about it, and saying to your colleagues that perhaps let's just hold back on the judgment and focus on the primary person here, who is the pregnant woman?
But, well, there's still a lot of work that needs to happen around health services and destigmatizing abortion services, because you still get health workers who really do not want to be involved in abortion services. But even if they do not want to be involved, they should not serve as a barrier to women accessing services. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen in the health services on values clarification and getting health workers to accept that it's a service that needs to be rendered. Reproductive right is a right that women should be afforded and should exercise.
And how you're doing a lot of work in challenging the stigma. I mean, I've seen some of your work on Facebook, for example, where you speak quite openly about abortion, about adoption. Give us an idea of just some of the horrors that you've come across in reaching out to young women, especially on a platform like Facebook, for example.
So we obviously have a Facebook page where we help women with that information. And just to go back to the question you asked, Ausindu, some of the reasons why these young women don't know information, I mean, they message us and they don't even know what an abortion procedure looks like. So they have this myth that it must be so scary, and that's what it is in their mind. Some of the horror stories, I mean, I was just talking during makeup that most of them want to do it themselves. They are tired of even going into a clinic. They don't even want to enter.
Which is quite dangerous to attempt it yourself.
Yeah, they want to do it themselves, or they want to just buy the pills, which is illegal, and it can't happen. You can die. Most women are dying because of it, and that's where young women are. They just want to do it themselves. Some do it themselves and end up with just looking at a fetus, they're not knowing what to do and feeling like, am I going to get arrested? What's going to happen? And that's exactly what's happening out there.
We recently had the State of the Nation address. We've had the budget presented by the Finance Minister. In a few days, we'll also have the budget votes from the various departments, one of those departments being the Department of Health. When you listen to government leaders speak, and they speak about health, do you get the sense that reproductive health gets the due attention, especially when you talk about abortion and the preventative measures? And also, at school level, is there enough education going on there?
Yeah. I think government is not, we were just talking about it, it's not gender responsive. It doesn't care about reproductive justice, because some of the reasons why there's no access is because there's no facilities or equipment for that to happen. And nurses and just medical professionals are not trained efficiently for this. So I don't think government is taking any gender issue seriously, especially reproductive justice.
And do I want to come to you? So I come in, and I want to move away from the idea that abortion and adoption would only affect teenage moms and say, let's say I come in, I am a 32-year-old, I'm pregnant, I don't want to abort, but I do want to maybe give this child up for adoption. What happens at hospital level to arm me with as much information as possible?
Well, I think that's where a big gap is, that women actually do not get information that empowers them to be able to make decisions. And you find that especially in black communities, a woman would rather go and abandon a baby than give it up for adoption. So there's lots of issues that need to go into giving information to the women on the correct information, on the options they have, so that they can make proper decisions. So it's lack of information is a big issue.
3,500 children apparently abandoned in South Africa annually. How do we know where they end up? And is the data itself accurate, given that the level of stigma often silences many mothers into shame?
It's actually, that question is actually interesting. We would like to know where they end up. I always find that people use these pictures of children found in sewages and ditches and dustbins. I know a lot of the bulk of those children end up in orphanages. But the real question is, where do these stats come from? How accurate are they? And why are there no stats on illegal abortions? How many women are having illegal abortions and how many are dying from illegal abortions? We don't have those statistics, and that's concerning.
And just on that, Ndu, Khao mentioned an earlier point about how a lot of women would then attempt to carry out an abortion themselves. You walk around the CBD, we've all seen it, the posters that say, come to Dr. Khao or call this number and this abortion will be sorted within 24 hours or so. What sort of danger does that put the mother and the child in when they finally present at a hospital?
Well, that's where we have the majority of women dying from unsafe abortion, because they would go out, buy pills in the street and have, I mean, there's the other report that we've heard is that when women go to these backstreet providers, they put pills in them, and then sometimes they use their pennies to put the pills inside the woman. So that means the woman is being raped in the process. So those women end up in the hospitals bleeding, she may die. If she doesn't die, she loses her uterus. So it's a very serious issue. And I mean, the fact that we don't really have stats on deaths due to unsafe abortion is equally concerning, because when you look at the reports that the government provides, you'll find that it gets classed as a septic miscarriage, or so you don't really get the numbers,
the root cause of
women,
it.
The root cause of the death.
Let's come to you then, Khao. Illegal abortions, common thing. You go to any major city in this country, these are going on. Government says once in a while, look, we're trying to fight these, we're shutting them down, but we don't seem to have a handle on that situation. Are you, as an activist in this space, agitating for government and law enforcement agencies to do more in that regard to save indeed the lives of mothers and children?
Yeah, I think where we are placed right now is firstly to empower the woman to first know that don't go to these places, and to first find out from the Department of Health where are the places, because they are not shutting down illegal abortion providers, they are shutting down safe abortions, because more and more clinics are not providing abortions anymore. Women are sent from pillar to post and where. So the Department of Health is part of the problem. And we are trying to basically just expose the fact that you can die, this is unsafe, but at the same time, how do we help you in actually accessing the safe abortion?
Let me ask you this again, Du, from the health worker perspective. How much of the wanting to give up a baby especially after birth, is due to postpartum depression. Does that play a huge role, or do you find that a lot of women who want to give up their children are just people who aren't ready or cannot afford to raise a child, or is there a medical reason as well for that feeling in the mother?
Well, there's lots of reasons why women would want to do that, but like I said earlier, that well, I wouldn't know what the numbers are, but it's really not common that you get black women wanting to give their babies up for adoption, and there's lots of reasons for that. They'd rather abandon a baby, and I mean, there should be information out there that we have, you know, like your Door of Hope and those kind of places where women can go. But we also have social workers in health facilities who should be able to sit the women down and discuss these kind of issues with them on how to do it legally and so that they don't have issues that they have to deal with afterwards.
Are these social working departments, I mean thinking social development, how when you do approach them, for instance, to help with the women who come to you via social media, do you find that they are well-resourced and able to take these on, given the many problems that they deal with, be it issues in the home where they have to go in and rescue a child, rescue a mother, and now they have to take on this other load, which is very crucial because now you're dealing with a very sensitive situation where there's a pregnant woman or a child who's just days or months old with no place to go?
I think, Temigile, social workers are not really the problem. They are inundated with a lot of issues. I do think the problem is the system about them. They're not decision makers. They are the people who are supposed to be doing the work. But because they are under-resourced, underpaid, there's a problem with dealing with these issues. And that's why they don't sufficiently deal with them. And they themselves end up abandoning these children.
In one sentence each, because we do have to close, what is the way forward?
I think from my side, the Social Reproductive Justice Coalition has taken out a petition on just political parties who are currently going into elections on what are they doing with reproductive justice. And I think people should join that and ask those questions.
Do?
I would say we need a feminist government. We need a government that will cater for the needs of the women, and gender-responsive budgeting is one of the things that we want to see our government do in order to deal with issues that women face.
Ladies, my thanks to you both. That was sexual and reproductive health rights and justice activist Ndu Madogo Mukutwane, as well as abortion support essays Gaupalelwe Phalaitsile.